But then she started escalating. She'd show me cartoons of monkeys and expect me to watch it for hours, punishing me and taking away my things when I looked away. She signed me up for any plays that required a kid to play an animal and made me dance like a monkey to prepare me for the future. My grandpa, after a little while, began to join in too. The two of them combined were a nightmare. He'd tell me to study rap because it was my heritage and quizzed me, while my grandma told me to dance like a monkey to that same music. When I complained or cried, they justified themselves by saying that I wasn't a part of the family and that they were just helping to find the real me, just like my criminal parents. And yes, they did fully believe that my biological parents were criminals, a racist assumption that they spread through the neighborhood to the point where I could feel our neighbors stare at me whenever I stepped outside. Hey, my name is Elijah. I'm black, but my adoptive family is entirely white, something that my adoptive grandparents had an issue with. To give some context to the story, my adoptive parents struggled with conceiving their own child. From what I was told, they always wanted a child of their own, but after years of failure and seeing dozens of doctors, they realized that it would be impossible for them due to a medical condition that my mom had. My grandma threw a fit when they discovered that fact. She went as far as to try and push her son, my dad, to divorce my mom and marry someone else, though he stood strong and refused the outrageous demand. It was a huge argument, and they cut ties with her after it due to the impossible things she'd said during the confrontation. My grandpa reached out to my parents privately a little later to try and mend the broken relationship, claiming that my grandma had always dearly wanted grandchildren and was just acting out because of the despairing realization that she would never be able to get any. My parents, hearing that, decided to take action. They'd wanted children for a long time too, and so they sought out a different solution to their hopes: adoption. And that's when I was introduced to the family. The entire process was kept quiet for the most part, as my parents didn't want to get my grandparents' hopes up unnecessarily, but once everything was approved, they decided to invite them to a dinner with a big surprise. That surprise was me, of course. I was really young at the time, maybe around 8 or 9 from what I remember, and I was filled with nothing but happiness and gratitude after being taken in by new adoptive parents. I was nervous, but also extremely excited to meet more of the adoptive family. But unfortunately for me, things would not turn out as I'd hoped or expected.
Who is this?
He's our son, Mom. Your grandson, Elijah. Say hello.
Are you serious? Tell me that this isn't final yet, because there's no way we're bringing one of those hooligans into our home.
Hello, Mom. He's a kid.
That's what they all start out as. But then look at where they all end up. Do you understand how much of a laughingstock I'll become when people realize my grandson is one of them?
She obviously disapproved heavily from the start. Even if my grandpa reasoned with her enough to get her to sit down for the dinner, it was clear that he wasn't happy about the situation either. Regardless of their opinion, though, the adoption process had already been done. I was a legal part of the family, and she would have to be the one to warm up to that idea eventually. I kept up that hope for years, but it began fading for every muttered, derogatory comment or racist remark that had me slowly realizing that their problem wasn't with me being biologically unrelated to my parents. Their actual problem was with the fact that I was a black kid that had been adopted by a white family.
It's just wrong, don't you think? I mean, he sticks out so much, it's obvious that he's not a part of this family.
Mom, please. Elijah is family. He's our son.
I still don't see why you couldn't have just brought home someone that looks a little more like us, you know?
At first, it was just those hurtful comments. She'd never fail to make one whenever she saw me, but I could try to block out and ignore her words that she knew were well within earshot of me. But then she started escalating. She'd show me cartoons of monkeys and expect me to watch it for hours, punishing me and taking away my things when I looked away. She signed me up for any plays that required a kid to play an animal and made me dance like a monkey to prepare me for the future. My grandpa, after a little while, began to join in too. The two of them combined were a nightmare. He'd tell me to study rap because it was my heritage and quizzed me, while my grandma told me to dance like a monkey to that same music. When I complained or cried, they justified themselves by saying that I wasn't a part of the family and that they were just helping to find the real me, just like my criminal parents. And yes, they did fully believe that my biological parents were criminals, A racist assumption that they spread through the neighborhood to the point where I could feel our neighbors stare at me whenever I stepped outside. The abuse never stopped. My parents kept me away from my grandparents as much as they possibly could, but they lived in the same neighborhood and barged in often anyway. Every single one of their visits brought a new wave of insults, and I was forced to grow up in that environment all throughout my younger years. It was because of them that I desperately studied in high school to try and win a scholarship for a dream university far from the area. I got excellent grades, participated in as many extracurriculars as I could, and even got a part-time job to try and save for college. My parents were full of pride for me. My grandparents, on the other hand, were the opposite.
Listen, I know how hard school must be with your background, but you can't cheat off of your better classmates to get good grades.
I'm sorry? I studied hard for my grades. I'm always reviewing my notes or reading through a textbook. You've literally seen me do it.
Don't be speaking so harshly and stop denying it. How else would you have gotten these grades? Now, if you're really focused on your future, you should start playing a sport, like football or basketball.
They never believed me. Even on my high school graduation, when I was receiving my diploma, I could feel their disapproving glares from the audience. Even when I was packing my things to get ready to move to a small apartment close to the dream university that I had thankfully been accepted at, they were muttering about how I had only gotten in by stealing from the hard work of others. It was humiliating, but it also meant that I felt better and freer than ever when I finally got out of that house, that neighborhood, and that town for better opportunities. I aced all my exams after studying day and night for them, received my diploma, and won an internship with a large credit card company immediately after graduation. My strong work ethic and my willingness to learn was noticed in the company, and I was quickly offered a full-time role as an assistant manager. Though my schedule was flexible and I could work from home if I wanted to, I ultimately decided against returning to my family's town, remaining near the company in the big city instead. Unfortunately, though, my focus on my career had an unforeseeable consequence. One day, on a Saturday morning that seemed completely average, I received a phone call that would ruin my life. It was my grandparents, something incredibly strange, considering that they had never reached out on their own before. I realized why when they told me the news. My parents were dead from an unexpected car crash on the highway, and I was to return to my hometown to attend the funeral. I, of course, did. I planned on staying at a hotel during that time while I got both funeral and legal arrangements sorted, but my grandparents were strangely insistent that I stayed with them for that time instead. I wasn't too sure, so I only ever agreed to an initial dinner with them first to see what was up. Maybe my parents' deaths had changed their worldview or something. I expected many things from that dinner. Almost every single one of those expectations were shattered, and not in a good way.
So you finally show your face. I already knew people like you don't know the real value of family, but I guess not even being raised by the right kind of folk could change your nature.
Hold on, honey. I'm sure he's grieving like the rest of us. And besides, there's still a way he can finally prove his dedication to this family. What's going on? Is there something about my parents I need to know? It's nothing about your parents, but still, it involves your family. Your grandmother and I have been struggling. With our finances, we mean. And you work for that fancy card company, don't you? Making good money, too. Couldn't you help us out a little, grandson? My grandparents were in debt. They went on to explain how they had used up their retirement funds and had ended up borrowing from some local loan sharks in amounts that they couldn't pay back. Now, with the harsh interest rate and the loan sharks' threats, they ended up with more debt and fear than they could manage. So now, they were turning to their last and only chance at salvation: me. Unfortunately for them, though, I vividly remembered the abuse and verbal attacks they had attacked me with when I was younger. I remembered how I cried because my skin color didn't look like the rest of my family's, and I remembered how all of those emotions were amplified to the extreme by more and more insults by my own grandparents. And more than that, I recognized the fact that instead of waiting for a better time, they had decided to ambush me like this, just after my parents' deaths, and just before their funeral. They were clearly trying to manipulate me, but the lengths they were going to were beyond shocking. After all, my dad was their son. How could they taint his memory like this? I didn't even have to think deeply about whether or not I would help them out. No, I'm not helping you. You can deal with the situation yourselves.
You're ungrateful. We've done more for your upbringing than what you could ever know. Oh, but of course I should never have expected someone like you to understand. People like you don't understand a thing about the importance of family and giving back to your loved ones.
All my childhood, you belittled and mocked me. How did that contribute at all to my success? And how dare you say this to me right after my parents, your son, died? We haven't even buried them yet. Don't speak to her like that, you disrespectful brat. I'd heard enough. I got up right there and then, leaving the dinner behind. I thought that was the end of it. Until my grandparents later quietly messaged me on Facebook, trying to appeal to the idea of me helping them with their debt by revealing a secret they'd been keeping, the fact that my grandma was sick. It was a treatable illness, but one that required money for said remedy. It was why they'd taken the loan at such unfavorable rates, and why they were so desperate to force me to help. They begged me again to help. But I was done. After years of abuse, they did not deserve to get to crawl back to me when they needed me. They had cut the ties of our relationship, and now they got to live with the consequences. I refused their begging, and what I received in return was a slew of insults so vile I would never repeat them. I then proceeded to screenshot that entire conversation and upload it to the neighborhood group chat. I heard that the fallout was quite bad, though I've yet to scroll through it myself due to the funeral preparations being more important. That being said, it should be noted that the moment their social life had exploded, my grandparents lost all of their fake graciousness and immediately packed their bags. I was shocked, of course, because the funeral and burial of my parents, including their own son, was still another week away when that happened. Yet to them, that fact didn't seem to matter. All I know is that they packed their bags and ran off, taking nothing but their valuables in their car and selling their home. I heard from a friend closer to the countryside that he spotted my grandpa trying to pick up odd jobs, with the elderly man trying to raise money for grandma's treatment. It wasn't as gratifying to hear as I thought it was. After all, I had essentially exiled them from the only home they'd ever known and forced them onto the streets. But in the moments of my regret, I think about how the loan sharks were coming after them anyway, and how it might have been for the best that they skipped town. I think about the abuse they hit me with during my childhood, and suddenly I don't feel as bad anymore. The only thing I need to focus on is my parents. My grandparents, wherever they may be, are as irrelevant to me now as I was to them when I was younger. I later heard rumors that, due to illness and the cost of expensive medical treatment, my grandmother passed away. My grandfather now lives with a cat and works as a cleaner just to survive. His reputation has been ruined in our former state, and he's still being haunted by loan sharks he owes money to. He can't return home, and I presume he's depressed and lonely, but honestly, I don't care. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. We'll do our best to reply.